Right. We were talking about you had a complaints board about your own property, and I was saying I was rather surprised as a constable the deal hadn't been fixed behind the scenes, but so it was rather revealing that you had to go through that procedure, and you lost.
Well, yeah, but there you go. That's justice, isn't it? And that's the law. As you say, that you think these things are fixed behind the scenes, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, sorry, I did say that wrong. Fortunately, they're not. And I think that may happen in some cases, certainly doesn't. I wouldn't have any part of it. Well,
ironically, I was very sympathetic to your cause on that, because I thought it was something that should have been fixed out without having to go to a complaints board, because I thought the decision was wrong, and I think it's whatever happened eventually, I don't know, but I thought the decision was wrong. But I've just been attending Plymouth, the inquiry that's been going on there, 2 days of talking, and at the late moment, the Assistant Chief Minister, Sir Philip Balash, throws in the spanner in the works that the states are now going to try and acquire the land. But these are the sort of aspects of the Jersey system which bother me, and I gather from time to time, from when I've seen you in action, you get bothered by some of these things.
Yeah, well, if you want to use Plymouth as the example of what's going on, I've got several worries about that. Firstly, in an ideal world, it would be perfect. You could knock everything down and have a nice open space for people to enjoy. However, in the real world, where are we going to get this money from? I sit on the Corporate Services Committee. We have to watch the Treasury and we have to watch the Chief Minister. This was never brought up. This isn't part of the medium-term financial plan. It isn't part of any financial planning at all. So that's point number one. Point number two is I am unhappy with a compulsory purchase situation where it is not something vitally important to the island. I would not put that on my vitally important list. I would put cheap housing and I would put health services on as vitally important things to do, not that. So I'm worried, where's the money going to come from? How long is it going to take? I mean, look at the Skende for a start. The Skende took 20 years, 2 decades, to sort that one out. And in the end, I think they paid over the top. The legal fees on it were 7 million.
Ironically,
the lawyers.
Ironically, the planning officer who was most involved. That was John Young, who's now the deputy for St Brelade. He was there arguing that this development should be knocked on the head. So he's rather jumped ship. I mean, he knows full well the implications of compulsory purchase, if anybody does.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how John goes on this now.
If I live in St Clement's Parish, the neighbouring parish, but if your parishioners came to you, and if it goes to the states and they say they want a compulsory purchase, if your parishioners come to you and say they're not willing, they say to you, we don't want to support that, what would your position be? What would you have to do?
I would be sympathetic to my parishioners.
But even if you weren't sympathetic, suppose you're like you get a requête, they come to have a meeting and they say our view is we don't want to support that thing. What's the position of the
Well, I'd have to take account. My personal position would be that I don't feel it's justified, and I feel there are too many problems with it, and I personally would agree with a restrictive development of some kind up there, because basically I'm worried about the money side of it, and I'm worried about the time it's going to take, and I'm worried about how much money the lawyers are going to take us for this time.
We've had, on my previous interviews with a couple of your fellow constables, discussions in the Edge about the Constables Committee. Is that the sort of issue that could come up at the Committee of Constables? Would they discuss if that became an issue? Because obviously it only really affects the one parish.
No, it wouldn't really come up at a Committee of Commissars meeting, no.
Do you think it ought to? Do you think Constables Committee ought to be extended to look at things like that?
No, I don't think so. I think we have a forum in order to promote our views, which is the States, and I think that's where it should be kept.
Lots of people have sent in views to the Electoral Commission. I don't think you attended, and as far as I know you didn't.
No, I suppose I should have done, but I think my views were probably pretty self-regarding. I feel that I have a large stake in being a constable, and perhaps it's better that I should let other people make that decision.
I mean, it wasn't just about the constables, but that's emerged as that's the issue which it all seems to hinge upon, whether the constables are going to stay as of right in the States. And obviously you're definitely of the opinion they should stay in the States.
Yes, I am. I mean, we've discussed it uphill and down dale. We had so many debates on it in the States over the last, since I've been in, since 2003, that you get sort of debates happy about the whole thing. The same arguments are brought up time and time again, same arguments are refuted time and time again, and we all end up with the status quo.
You sit on at least one scrutiny panel now, corporate services. I think you have sat on other ones in the past. I seem to have seen your face there. Scrutiny.
Public accounts.
Public accounts. If constables were able to sit on those sort of committees or scrutiny panels and able to sit in the States but not have a vote, would that be any way to satisfying your sort of...
No, there's no point, is there? If you haven't got a vote, then, I mean, you can sit on these scrutiny panels, you can make recommendations and people just tell you to buzz off.
Well, they do that anyway, don't they?
The same way, you see, this is the other point about being a constable, is that I get, you see a pile of letters and stuff here on my desk. I get complaints from people, I get people asking for help. I then have to go, I much prefer to deal with the ministers directly on this sort of thing. The grandstanding that goes on at question time is just, quite frankly, sometimes ridiculous. I deal directly with the ministers, I can go to them. They know I've got a vote, and they know they've got something coming up in the near future, and they know they've got to keep me happy by replying to my complaints or queries. So I have already got enough leverage with them through having a vote in the States. If I didn't have that vote, I suspect that I wouldn't have had any leverage at all in order to get answers.
From your, obviously you're there to represent your parishioners primarily. Do you feel you're able to do that effectively? Because I notice over the years that constables tend not to bring many propositions or bring complaints board proceedings on behalf of their parishioners. It's not an activity they seem to be involved in.
Well, I think, I suppose I don't think yes, I have. I brought a couple. But mainly I brought them as part of an ongoing process on planning matters mainly. Right. But with planning matters, you don't go to the States with something, you go to the minister or you go through the complaint system. I've had loads in the parish. We've had the Jersey pottery situation recently. We've had a lot more. There's another one coming up now, I think, with the Delamar nursery site. We had them about the oyster shed down at our rock. We've had them about homegrown, putting in a little garden centre there. We've had many, many things. Those are things where you have to go to a higher level to work these things out. But with normal, as you know, the planning process is such that tripwires can appear anywhere on the slightest and smallest of problems. There's a tripwire in there somewhere in the system, they'll find it. And to me, in the planning thing, you've got to try to appeal to common sense, which doesn't always work. And then after you've done that, then you have to go obviously higher up the line. What
struck me as very unfair, and I've been doing some research on the Plymouth Inquiry, had an applicant who was a lawful owner of the ground, the land, putting forward legitimate proposals, but everybody was invited to come in and complain about it and make objections at the planning inquiry, which they weren't affected, they weren't there, they didn't have specific grievances. It was a sort of a general assuming a public was, well, that's the job of politicians, surely, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but at the same time you can understand that in a situation where they're going to involve what the objectors are doing is they're involving the whole island in the objection, because they are saying that it should be part of the whole island, belonging to the population of the whole island. So in fact,
they had the island plan.
So they have got a ground.
The same inspector, all this was discussed 12 months ago with the island plan draft when the inspectors looked at that. So it's all been discussed before.
Oh, I know, the whole thing's we've been through the whole lot before. Again.
And we shall be.
This is just like having an argument about the constables in the States.
Yeah.
You just have to go over the old ground, trawl it all up again, and there'll be some new people coming in who will think they've got the answer, and the answer will have been.
The senators is one of the strange things in the States, because they get a relatively easy ride in the States, don't they? Because I remember when I was speaking to the Constable of St Clement, he'd been deputy senator and now constable, and the hardest working person, if he's diligent, is the deputy, because he gets all sorts of activities from his own constituents that want him to take on causes and do things, but he also gets a lot of phone call from other parishes, other people, and all sorts of, and he's got his own interests as well he wants to pursue. But the senators don't, generally speaking, receive many calls. They say, I've got an all-island mandate and all the rest of it, but they don't actually receive much.
I don't know if that's my experience of that. I've never been a senator or a deputy, so I don't know. I know what I get, and that's a lot. But I don't know. I would have thought senators got a lot more.
Do you think they have a role, senators?
Yes, I do. I think an all-Ireland mandate has a role, whatever you call them. You can call them senators, you can call them anything you like. But an all-Ireland role, I think, is very important.
One of the areas I've looked at is because some of the, if you keep the 12 parishes, which I happen to think is a good idea, I see nothing wrong with the 12 parishes. They exist, they're traditionally there, the church structure and all the rest of it. I may not agree with it, but it exists. The boundaries of the parishes themselves could be interfered with slightly to make more houses. You could take a few houses from Grouville, put them to St Clements, or a few houses from St Clements. Constable St Clements didn't seem very keen on that idea. Do you think there's anything intrinsically wrong with them?
Where do you stop on that?
Well,
I mean, I know that it's an idea. It's practical. However, whether people are going to want to do it or not is another matter.
Well, as you say, it's a practical idea because obviously the case is always cited of St Mary with just 1,500 voters, or whatever it is, and other constituencies maybe 3,000, twice that number. So it would be attractive just to move a few houses or build some houses in St Mary, which would be another subject I want to discuss with you. But to increase the number that actually live there, that would be a simple. And the other curious thing is nobody is quite sure where the parish boundaries came from.
No, I have no idea where they came from. I must admit, no idea at all. I think I know how some of the Vantames came about. Because I'm living in the Vantames de la Roque, and I know that the Vantame was created with streams. Streams coming from the high ground up at Verclue, coming down and then coming down towards La Roque, and then of course you've got the sea, the edge of the sea, the beach. And then I don't know how the inland one was quite created. I
wondered whether, as you say, streams were obviously important. I wonder whether they related more to fiefs and seigneurial divisions that they were.
It could have been that, yeah. It could have been that, but I really don't know.
But they're obviously not set in stone. I mean, some of them might be set in stone because they're in granite, but there's no reason in theory why they shouldn't be interfered with slightly, is it?
No, well, history is history, isn't it? And people don't like it being tampered with. I'm not sure I want to be tampered with.
Well, of course, if they did, I mean, you're quite keen on some more affordable homes being built in this parish.
So, yeah.
Not enough to affect the overall electoral situation, but quite a substantial.
What I'm actually looking at, Mike, is affecting the population situation at the moment. We have, firstly, if I can divide it into two parts, the two things I'm keen on: the elderly homes and homes for the first-time buyers. With the elderly homes, we're cracking that. Mr. Kirsch's building, as you know, 20 down at Gorey, and there is no other plans in the parish at the moment. But however, those two will take up part of the applications that we have, and we have 70 applicants. Now, our problem is that those 70 applicants, you might have 30 or 40 who have middle range houses to sell. Let's say in the £500,000–600,000 range. What those people are looking for is to be able to sell their homes, put the cash in the bank and downsize. Either downsize to a small house or a rental house. Now, I've had a scheme which I've discussed with both planning and with the Minister of Housing about creating short-term leases, lifetime leases. For instance, Mr. Kirsch's homes, I know he would want to do. If you're, say, 75, 80 years old, you can move into a two-bedroomed house. You could pay a capital sum for advance rental, if you like, of say you 50,000 or 100,000. If you sold your house for 500,000, that leaves 400,000 in the bank, which brings you revenue in to live on. In the meantime, you have a guaranteed roof over your head. You are not imposing on the state, and you're independent, which is what most people want. Jersey breeds its own mentality in people in that they want independence and they want to be able to say, right, okay, these are my four walls for as long as I live. When I die, I don't care. So then, if you die, the house then goes back to the trustee or the person owning it, and it gets reissued, if you wish, for another set. And it's probably a very good deal for the owner, that is also a fantastic deal for the older people who have the security of tenure.
Yeah.
And security as you grow older is very, very important.
Yeah, the other thing is, of course, if you have an arrangement where there's a public participation, it's the maintenance of the house, because it's a great worry for older people actually physically maintaining their house.
Absolutely.
I mean, it becomes a burden. It becomes a millstone around there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm hearing this.
You can do a deal on this.
I'm hearing this all the time, and in conjunction with the care in the community, people become ill, not able to look after themselves, want carers in. Existing homes, they have to adapt, they're no longer suitable for them. There's a huge number of problems, but the system doesn't seem to be getting to grips with them, does it?
No. But the second part of your question, really, which was about the youngsters, affordable homes, is as a parish, we don't have any young people moving into the parish because there are no homes for them to move into. And I would like to see developments in the parish limited to first-time buyer homes.
Well, strange enough, because you may have been one of the constables who spoke, but during the island plan discussions with the inspector, this was one of the issues that came up, and at least there were several constables, I can't remember, it might have been yourself, saying they wanted more homes in their parishes because the parish structure was in danger. That was one of the elements that struck me.
Exactly.
And like you're saying, you've got difficulty recruiting suitable people, or any people, to come into the honorary service. You need people to run these things, and you need people. And if you've got an ageing population, they're past the age limit. So in order to make the system work, but one of the worrying aspects is, of course, they've now got a gateway system for all supposedly called social housing. How do you fit in with that if you're a parish and you want to allocate housing to people? How do you fit in with the gateway system?
Well, I think if we're the instigators of the developments and things like that, then we should have a right to say who's going to live in it.
You'd want control over it.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I've already got on Mr. Kirsch's development, I've already got a letter from the housing minister saying we don't have to use the gateway, which is fine. I've got loads of people, my generation they are really, because I'm actually probably older than I look, I hope, coming into me and saying, can you fix us up with a house or something like that? These are people who are born in the parish, who've lived in the parish, who have huge connections with the parish and want to spend the rest of their days in the parish.
There are lots of things I'd like to discuss with you about parish nation, but there's one issue before we wind up about your involvement with Silkworth Lodge, which has come up recently. Very unhappy affair. All sorts of very strange things emerged during the course of a scrutiny hearing. You're a trustee of the charity or the non-profit making organisation, which is Silkworth Lodge. What's the latest update on that?
I think we've actually made peace now with the authorities, but I think we had to take a stand at the time. We were under threat. We were not being acknowledged by elements within the health department, the work we did, and I know I'm standing as if I'm blowing our own trumpet there, that we do brilliant work, they do fantastic work, and they get fantastic results, and I think that's the end of it. We work on basis, there's two types of ways of treating drug addiction. The first is that you go on to an abstinence only, and as a very heavy smoker who gave up, I do know that's the only way to do it. You just stop and that's it, and you just put up with the problems for a while. Or of course you go on to the methadone based cure, so-called cure. But we heard at the inquiry, you were there, that 14 years some people have been on methadone. Well, you're just swapping one addiction for another addiction. Doesn't make sense.
When I was listening to the discussions that are going on about the various agencies that refer people to Silkworth, do parishes refer people to Silkworth?
Oh yes.
You finance people to go? Yeah. That happens?
No, we don't finance them. No. Silkworth is a charity.
Right.
And we do raise funds from charitable sources. We do get a very nice grant from the States.
Right.
And we, when they had the spending cuts, we actually voluntarily cut ours by 10%, which was, we thought would put us in very well with them. But anyway, we seem to be on a much more even keel with them now. I think they appreciate what we're doing. We're not being ruled by boxes being ticked. We're actually being, we always have been, properly looked after by a UK government agency, which we get over every 6 months to regulate us, and our regulators are probably tighter than any other. We are classed in Silkworth as being one of the top 3 addiction clinics in the UK, and I don't think you can go further than that on the Silkworth launch thing.
There are many more things I'd like to discuss with you, but my little clock tells me...
You missed out my favourite, which is the tidal power.
Oh yes, indeed, yes, tidal power. Yes, tell me about tidal power.
Well,
is it ever going to happen in my lifetime?
That's a good question. I'm more worried about my lifetime than yours. It's taken a long, long time to get off the ground. We had no funding, we had nothing, but I was very, very fortunate indeed in that when Freddie Cohen asked me to take over the chairmanship of the commission to look into it, that I got furnished with 3 absolutely first-class people to come onto the commission, really brilliant people. And we bashed away that, of course, the whole thing hinges around one fact, that is we do not own the seabed around Jersey. And without that ownership, you can't do anything.
From your
very, very good news, and that is that the UK government have now agreed to talk to us about the ownership of the seabed. Talk, that's only, but it's a huge step forward, I believe.
From your perspective, is Grouville Bay the preferred site for any installation?
No, we know where the preferred sites are, and we actually did squeeze the money out of where did we get it? I can't remember where we got the money from now. We got the money from somewhere to do a survey, a marine survey, and we've identified 2 spots which are not fantastic. They're not like the ordinary race, but there are 2 spots which are in the medium range of could provide tidal power. However, I've got to say that with the technology at the moment, it's very much in the future. Because
well, if it relies upon that submarine cable to connect it all together, it might be
yes,
a bit unreliable.
We might plug into it yet.
I better stop.
And send it back the other way.
Most grateful for your time.
Okay. No problem.
Bye.